and welcome to the 68th episode of the MyMuddlings podcast. I'm here. My name is Julianne. If you haven't tuned in before, if you're giving me a try, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I know I've been gone for a couple of weeks. I feel like I got something stuck in my lip gloss. I've been unwell for quite a while. I mean, you guys saw the last episode that I did, and I was beginning to lose my voice. And I think I ended up getting 2 separate colds over a 3-week period, so that was great. The first one was from my nieces, because, as children are, they're little germ bags. And then Simon brought one home. So I got Simon's cold. He's still suffering a little bit because he has asthma and already has issues with his lungs anyway. He's still having a bit of coughing and a bit of congestion on his lungs. So he's still suffering, but I'm mostly okay. I cough here and there. My nose runs here and there, but mostly I'm okay. I sound like I've got a little bit more vocal fry than I usually do today. So I've got my trusty cup of coffee. So hopefully it's not too distracting and it's not too annoying. So I've got quite a few things to talk about today. I have finished a lot of things in the time since I spoke to you last. I had a little bit of a finishing party over the weekend, in fact, because I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I'm doing some sample knitting for a friend of mine who you guys will know. I will talk about it in a little bit. So as such, I wanted to get a few things off the needles before I spend all of my time knitting samples. So that's what I did over the weekend, and I got 4 projects finished. Unfortunately, they are no good for our knit along, which has got a bit quiet, which is not surprising because I haven't spoken about it. The Whip It Good knit along that we've got going over in the Ravelry group. If you aren't a member of the Ravelry group, we are over there. Please do look for the MyMuddlings podcast Ravelry group. And because that's supposed to be whips that you have had on the needles before the 1st of January this year. It is finishing at the end of June. I've noticed that I'm not real good at participating and following through with my knit along, so I don't know how many more of those I'll do. I'll probably do one for my new shawl design, which is one of my FOs, and I'll talk about shortly. What can I say? What was I talking about? I can't even remember now. But I guess after having that little bit of blather, I'm probably not going to I'm going to try and not do too much tangenting and blathering today, because I do have a lot to get through. And yes, so probably the only other thing I want to mention is that next week I will be dark again, because Simon and I are actually going away for 4 nights next week. So we are going up to a little town called Wallaroo. I think it's little. I've never been there before. It is in the Golden Triangle in South Australia, which is like a mining area. So that should be interesting. Like I said, I've never been there, so I don't know what's there. I don't know what we're going to see. So I guess if you guys are from South Australia or you know of Wallaroo and there's anything that I should be checking out while I'm there, please do let me know down in the comments, and I will try and check it out. And I'm hoping potentially to take a little bit of footage while I am there and do a little bit of a vlog for you all to see what we did and things like that in Wallaroo. So hopefully Simon will be on board with that. I know he doesn't love being filmed, which is interesting for he's like an introverted extrovert. He can be very extroverted, but as soon as you put a camera in his face, he's kind of not quite so out there. Hopefully I'll be able to get some little bits of footage, and I'll splice them together and upload that when I get back, and then I should be back on board for a podcast the week after next, so that'll be the last week of June, I believe, or the very, very start of July, because we're going from it'll still be June. I think it'll still be June. But yeah, I guess probably now what I can do is get on to what I have been knitting. And I guess, let me just take a sip of coffee. I'll put that down. I guess I can get onto the elephant in the room. It is the project that is here behind me on my dress form. I believe I called her Edith. I can't actually remember now, but I think her name is Edith. And this is my Little Arrows shawl, which was a skein yarn design by, I can't actually remember her surname, but it'll be in the show notes. Show notes are at mymuddlings.com. And Finlay, I think is her surname, Kristen Finlay. She's the dyer behind Skein Yarn. And this is her newest design, and it is called Little Arrows. So it's a very big shawl. It has, I think I used, it was over 1,000 yards in here. I only had small amounts of the balls left. I've done this out of my own yarn. This is my solo base, so it's Lovebirdlane yarn solo, and I really, really, really love this base. If I could knit all the things in this base, I totally would. I've actually run out now. I think I might have one skein left, or did I dye that? I can't even remember now. But this colour up the top here is Black Hole, and this one at the bottom is Princess Sparkle. Sorry, Edith, I'm knocking you around a little bit. But basically, it's you have swaths of stockinette, and then you've got this little lace pattern. I haven't blocked this yet, so it's not as open and neat as it could be. And the ribbing at the bottom is a little bit wavy because I haven't actually, you know, blocked it and straightened it. And yeah, it's a twisted rib on the bottom. And I have to say, by the end, I don't know how many stitches I had on my needles, but they were really, really long rows. And in twisted rib was beginning to get a little bit, I was getting over it, let's say. So I think I actually finished the bottom a couple of rows short of what I was supposed to do. I think it's supposed to be 3 inches on the bottom. But I think I stopped it probably a couple of rows short because I was just kind of over it, honestly. And it's not like it's going to affect the size of the shawl because it's already huge. So it is neither here nor there to have a couple of rows dropped off. But I really, really enjoyed this project. It was really lovely to work on. I loved the yarn. I loved the pattern. I would definitely recommend checking this one out. Kristen actually shared my shawl on Instagram, which was rather a thrill. So yeah, that was pretty fun. And yeah, I would definitely recommend if you like, especially these bits that are just stockinette. They're really, really meditative, and it's really great TV knitting. And if you're really good at reading your knitting, which is what I mostly do for lace and things like that, I memorise them pretty quick, and then I just read my knitting and I know what I'm supposed to do. Sorry, Marion is inside because it has been raining this morning, and she wants to go out. So she's going to make a bunch of noise in the background. Hopefully I can cancel some of it out in my editing. What was I even talking about? I don't know now. But yes, the lace, I memorised it pretty quickly because it's only really 2 different rows, you know, that you're actually working. Otherwise you're just sort of purling back. And yes, so it creates like a little arrow. You possibly can't see it because of the shadows and the fact that I haven't actually blocked it yet. But yeah, I really like geometric patterns, as you probably know. So the little chevrons and the arrows was really up my alley. And yeah, I really enjoyed that one. It was a lot of fun to knit. So I'll move on to my next FO, which doesn't have its ends woven in, and I will tell you why it is still on a stitch marker at the end. This was my Kristen shawl test because you would have seen that this one hasn't been blocked either. I've been very, very bad at my blocking, pretty much because it's cold and it's hard to get things dry. Yes, so you would have seen the Kristen shawl that I started in my Flame Trees colourway on my glitz base. Turns out, because of, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, because of the difference in the gauge of the yarn, I ran out of yarn. So I got right to the end and I ran out. And I was so worried about running out on this skein that I kind of fudged the last few repeats, and I kind of decreased them a little bit quicker than what the pattern says, because I was worried about running out of yarn. And I've got quite a big pile down here, so I probably didn't really need to do that. But it was only the last couple, and there's no bunching really or anything. Sorry about that. Granger just disturbed me because Simon popped in home. He's left his Fitbit behind, so he popped in to grab it. Yes, so I've got Granger's now come to join us. So now I have this yarn left. It may have been enough to do another repeat or two, but I don't think I'll bother pulling it out, because I thought maybe I'll pull it out, because I did find out that I had a little bit of an issue. I didn't seem to have, I think I had more stitches left than I should have at the end, but nobody else has had a problem with the edging, so I think that was just somewhere along the line I may have missed a decrease or something. I'm sure once the pattern is released and people have problems with it, they will let me know, but nobody who's been testing it has complained about an issue with stitches on the bind off applied edging. So this is in my rose gold colour, and I really love this colourway, and it seems you guys do too, because I can't keep this in the shop. As soon as it's in there, it's gone. So yes, this is my shawl prototype. You guys have seen it before. I don't know what else to say about it except I'm hoping to have it out within the next week or 2 weeks. I just want to check in with my test knitters and see how many of them have finished it and if they have any more further comments. I know I need to revise the applied edging because a few of my testers haven't done that before and found it a little bit confusing. So that is something that I will need to look at. But yeah, other than that, I nut this out in a few days and I was really happy with it. I thought the colourway might have been a little bit variegated, but it's actually turned out quite well. I'm actually quite happy with it. You can still see all the lace, and it'll probably be even better once I block it. So I treated myself to some blocking wires a little while ago, so I will be soaking both of my samples and blocking them shortly so that I can take photos for the pattern. That's the worst, so I don't have any photos yet for the pattern. I've just got all these placeholder image blocks in the test pattern, so I really need to yeah, get some photos so I can put them in the pattern and I can show them on social media, etc., so people can see what it is that they are buying. Okay, so my next FO is some socks. And if you've been following me for a while, you know I love to have socks on the needles. And I've kind of lost my sock mojo a little lately. But I am discovering that I'm really quick at knitting socks. Because, like, I basically knit an entire foot and finished a sock in a day. So I can get them done pretty quick. And these are Simon's socks, and these are knit from Mustache yarn. So this self-striping here is Mustache yarn, and that is the Dark Side of the Moon extended play version of her perfect sock. And it comes as 2 OCD skeins, as she puts it, so that they both start and stop in the same place. And I just dyed up some of my basic Swindon sock 80/20 merino nylon for the toes, cuffs and heels. And I ran out. I dyed a 20-gram skein, and because I've been doing quite big cuffs, I actually ran out of the black. So I just used some undyed that I had lying around, and I'm pretty much, I think what I'm going to do is just get a jar, put some dye in it, just dip the toe in, so hopefully I don't get too much of the rest of the toe getting darker black. Just dip that toe in and yeah, give it a microwave or something just to get the dye to set and just to colour the toe in, because I kind of thought, you know, for when I bought this yarn, the self-striping yarn, because it was from America, and Australia's dollar against American dollar is not that flash, even though they keep telling us that the Australian economy is doing really well. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. Yeah, I spent a lot of money on this yarn. I think I spent nearly $50 to buy this skein Australian, and that's not a small amount of money for us, although I did buy it when I was working, I believe. So we had 2 incomes, 2 full-time incomes coming in. So it wasn't such a big cost back then, but it was about $50, and I think that could have even been before shipping. So to me, having spent that much money on the yarn itself, that is not going to wash. That is not good enough for this yarn. So that's why Simon's like, they're just socks. It doesn't matter. I just keep it white. And I'm like, no. I'm sure you all understand. But yeah, so I'm going to be dyeing that toe. I don't know when, because I'm not bringing the dye pots out this week. I'm kind of already on a week of leave because we had a public holiday Monday. I'm tangenting again. We had a public holiday on Monday and Simon has taken Friday off as well. So really there's only 3 days. Today is the middle day. Tomorrow I'm getting tyres changed on the car because obviously we are driving to Wallaroo. And a couple of the tyres are very not flash. So I'm getting those fixed tomorrow. So yeah, I thought this week is probably going to be a little bit of a week off. I'll have a couple of weeks where I'm not really dyeing. So these won't get done probably until 2 weeks at least. So he can't have them till then. Although he probably could. I just have to wash them before I dye them. But yeah, these are just my basic sock pattern. If you're a new viewer, I have that for free on Ravelry. It's just a vanilla sock. It'll tell you there all of the things that I do for my socks. And these are exactly the same as mine. Simon and I have almost the same size feet. So I pretty much just make my socks for him. And he's fine with that because he mostly only wears them around the house anyway. So he's not putting them in his shoes. Maybe slippers. So it's not like it's a big deal. And they seem to fit him quite well. So that's not a problem. So that's Simon's socks. Alright, this one I am super, super happy with. And if you follow me on Instagram, you will have already seen this little one. I actually haven't named her yet. I don't know what I'm going to name her. But this is a kitschy cat and the pattern is by Susan Claudino. And if you remember, I knit a Milo vest for my niece out of some of my Fisher DK in the Mystic colourway, and I've used the leftovers to make the kitschy cat. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to call her. I haven't really had a good think about it. Her nose is slightly skew-if. There we go. Yeah, so I started her probably, I think the day after I finished the Milo vest. So that was a while ago, a couple of weeks. And I decided, because I was looking for scrap, something I could make out of the scrap, because I didn't have a lot. I think I only had at the most, I think I had 70 yards left, so I'm not sure what that is in grams. But I had 70 yards left, and this cat apparently was supposed to take about 60 to 70. So I thought, oh, perfect, that'll use up virtually all that I've got left. So I cast on the kitty cat, and this is something I've had, a pattern I've had in my library for a really long time. I'm a big fan of Susan Claudino's stuffy patterns. If you don't know her, go and check her out. She has the most amazing stuffies. I love them all. And yeah, I've always really liked this pattern, and recently Kristen from the Yarngasm podcast was gifted a kitschy cat by somebody. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's right, I've got that pattern. I love that pattern. I should use that. And then when it turned out I had exactly the right amount of yarn, it was a done deal. Now this yarn, she does call for worsted on her patterns. This is a DK, and I knit this on 4mm needles. So it's, I don't know if you can quite see, but it's relatively tight gauge. You can't see the stuffing really through. I knit this on DPNs, 4mm DPNs, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. There's a couple of areas where my stitches aren't super tight, but she's pretty well stuffed. She sits, she's a little top heavy because, I mean, as you can see, the head is huge, and I've just had her sitting up. If you saw my photo on Instagram, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a cushion up on the treadle of one of my spinning wheels up there, and she's just been sitting against the birdcage cushion. And I just used some little, I had some beads. These were actually purchased for decorations for my wedding, and I never ended up using them, so I thought they would be perfect just to do a little double-stranded necklace on my kitschy cat. And yeah, I really, really love her. And my finishing, my findings here, the eyes and the nose, they came, if you are interested, came from 6060 on Etsy. I think pretty much everybody knows them. I bought these a long time ago for another one of Susan's patterns, and that was her Snowball Buddies, which is like a Christmas pattern that she has. They're basically like little ornaments that you turn into bunnies and I think cats and things like that. You can do a reindeer, tangent again. But yeah, so I had these already. Her pattern has much bigger eyes on it, but because these were the only cat's eyes that I had, I wasn't going to go and order more because I'd have to wait for them to come from America. No. I think if I was to make this pattern again, I might order some bigger eyes, but for this one it was perfectly fine. I think it looks a little bit kawaii to have the eyes and the nose similar size. And the cool thing that I love about Susan Claudino's patterns is they're not really knit in one piece, but you knit, like for this one you knit the tail. This is just I-cord with double-stranded I-cord. You knit the legs, you knit the ears, and then you cast on the body, and then as you knit, you actually knit like 3-needle bind off the appendages to the body, so there's no seaming at the end. You literally just knit them in as you go. I found that I had to do a little bit of adjustment on the size of the stitches when I was putting these in, because towards the end they get big, because you basically knit them, put them on something holding them, and they do get a little bit loose. So I just had to do a little bit of an adjustment to make them even. And yeah, so you basically just knit everything on as you go. And for the eyes and the nose, she even tells you where to put those, because often that's the thing that I have trouble with a lot of my amigurumis and things like that, is placing the eyes in the right spot. Often I put them too far apart, so it looks like I have these really derpy looking toys that have these eyes that stick out to the side. But the fantastic thing that Susan actually makes you put a little pearl stitch in so that you know where to place the eyes and the nose, which was super, super helpful. So yeah, I really love this. I think it's super cute. My mother-in-law is a crazy cat lady, and I'm thinking it might be kind of cute too. She's got 4 cats, I think. 4 or 5? 4? 5. She's got 5 cats. So I'm thinking it could be kind of cute to dye up some yarn to match the colours of her cats and knit her 5 of these as a gift, because I thought that could be really, really cute. So yeah. I really love this pattern. I would definitely, if you haven't tried Susan Claudino's patterns, definitely give them a go, especially if you do like making stuffies. They are a lot of fun, and she often has sales where you can get, you know, buy 2 get 1 free and things like that. So if you do love her patterns, just keep an eye out, and I'm sure she'll have a sale from time to time and you'll be able to grab a few of them at once. Which is basically what I did. I've got quite a few of her patterns. I think I've got all of the ones that I really want now. So I have a massive library. I haven't knit them all, but I do have a massive library of Susan Claudino patterns, and yeah, I love all of them, and I think eventually they will all get knit. So that is my kitschy cat. My final FO is something that I don't have here to show you because it is currently on Granger. And I think I've mentioned before, I showed you guys the basic knitted dog sweater by Judith Swartz. That I knit for him, and I had, like I said, I had my finishing party over the weekend, and I had my 2 main panels of that already done, and so I basically just had to mattress stitch those together and pick up for a bottom rib, a neck rib, and arm ribs. And that's what I did on Sunday, and I finished it last thing on Sunday night, and we immediately tried it on, and yeah, he seems to really like it, which is really good. It fits him quite well. It does fall down his neck a little, so I don't know whether that's something to do with the neck or with the length of the back. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm not really worried about it because the pattern, which I got from a library book, because I think it's only available in a book, it has 3 options for the neck length. So you can do 3/4 of an inch, 1.5 inches, or 3 inches, and I did 1.5 inches, and that's supposed to be a mock turtleneck, I think is what it was called. I think the options were crew neck, mock turtleneck, and turtleneck. And yeah, I just went for the 1.5 inches around the neck. And yeah, he wore it all day yesterday. The cool thing with this, because I know I've spoken before about, we just bought him a Kmart sweater, a small lady size sweater, and cut the arms off so he wasn't always tripping on them. That we always had to make sure that we rolled it up before we put him out for a wee, because he had weed in that a couple of times, so we had to immediately take it off and let him suffer in his jocks and get cold, because he raced outside before we could roll up the jumper. Had to go straight in the washing machine. Yeah, this one is actually knit with the shorter under panel, so it does kind of curve around and it goes longer over his haunches, and then it cuts in front of his private parts so that he can actually wee with it on. I'm still pulling it up just to make sure there's no splashing or anything like that. But yeah, he can go and relieve himself with the jumper on, which is really great because it's so annoying to put the jumper on and off and things like that. I just pull it up a little and it seems to work just fine. And he wore it all day yesterday. And the interesting thing is usually he's cold and he's always coming out to me and he shakes and I said to him, are you cold, Baba? And he'll go, ooh, and he'll like really put it on, like he'll really milk it. And yesterday, and because of that, he usually stays curled up on his bed all day and I don't see him. He just sits on his bed curled up all day. Sometimes I put the blanket over him, which he then drags all over the house and I have to reset his bed. But yesterday I was out in the lounge room and he was actually coming out and just laying on his little mat that he has out in the lounge room or down on the rug. And he seemed perfectly warm. I did have the front door open, so that was a little bit of cold air coming in, but he seemed perfectly warm. He was just happy to lay there, which was fantastic, and that was exactly what I was hoping for with this sweater. So I think once I have done my sample knitting, or even during my sample knitting, I'm going to knit him another one, because I won't be buying any more yarn, because I bought this yarn specifically because it actually matches his bed perfectly. Because Granger, if you remember Granger, he has a very dark brown fur. You probably have already seen a photo, and he looks really, really good with red. So he's always had a red collar ever since I have had him, which is 8 years now. And yeah, he's had the red collar ever since I had him. And he has a red blanket, which he actually bogarted from me because it was actually my throw rug on my lounge. But when he was a pup, the only way we could stop him moving was to actually let him up on the couch. And then he would sit there and he'd shiver and shake, because I got him in April or March, I believe, and obviously going into the cooler months of the year, and he'd lay there, this little, 4-month-old puppy, like laying there going, ugh. So I used to let him he used to kind of curl himself up in my throw blanket. So basically he claimed it, and that's now his bed blanket. My like $80 Minky throw that I got from TVSN has been claimed by the dog, but that happened a long time ago, so I shouldn't really be bitter about it anymore. But yeah, so I got it in this cranberry colour. It's Cascade 220, the non-superwash version, which I'm still not sure if I'm going to regret. And in the cranberry colourway. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. The thing I do love about the 220 is that you can spit join the skeins together, so you don't have so many ends to weave in. Although there was a lot of ends, because like I said, it was seamed and then bits were picked up, and I'm thinking if I knit it again, I will use the same stitches that the pattern called for, but I will do it in the round, and I'll just subtract a couple of stitches on the edges to because obviously when you seam, there's a couple of stitches that kind of turn to the inside, So I'll just decrease those few stitches and just do it in the round, because it seemed it's not that hard. I mean, you'd have to do, for the armholes, I would just have to knit one side, put it on hold, knit the other side, and then join it back in the round, which is not hard. I would still have to pick up the legs. I've been thinking about this a lot. And then when it gets down to the haunches, I just have to do like short rows on half, or just work half of it again, and then do the ribbing for the bottom. So it's not going to be hard to convert to in the round project. And I kind of feel like that would probably mitigate any delay between knitting the panels and putting it all together, because that was the thing, is I've had those panels knit for weeks, but I just haven't seen them and done the finishing. So if I can reduce the finishing aspect of it, I'll probably have it done a lot quicker. And I have some Cascade 220 Superwash. I have a bunch of odds and ends of that. Marion. I have a bunch of odds and ends of that lying around, and it should be more than enough to do another one for him, because I think it was nearly 500 yards I used in his sweater. So I definitely have that of the scraps of the Cascade 220. So it'd be really good to get those out, because they've been floating around and they've been put into things and taken out of things. And yeah, it'd be really good to get those out of my stash. All right, enough about the doggy sweater, because I'm sure this is going to be huge. I might need to split this into 2 files and release it over 2 separate days. I don't know. But I guess I can get on to my works in progress, and I'll just grab that now.